Part 13. 11 p.m. Crystal Dawn stops typing and closes the computer. Erasmus was done in the bath and headed to bed. That was the place to be right now, next to that warm, Greek chiseled statue body of a man. May 7th, 2022. Like clockwork, Crystal Dawn sprung from bed. It was a lot better to get the coffee started than to lay there with thoughts that were beginning to redirect her mood negatively. That was no way to start the day. Granted, there was reason to feel sad. It was a Saturday, and most weekends this would mean Erasmus rising from bed early to wake his daughter for dance class. After they left, Crystal would wait for his son to rise to get him breakfast. Those kids, too, had an internal alarm like clockwork. This was now the second weekend in a row they were not being allowed visitation. This time the excuse was that it was Mother's Day weekend. They had asked for one night and were told no. Next weekend, she also had plans with them out of town, and while she never directly said, "I'm keeping them," she merely vaguely stated she was booking a hotel in another town for their daughter's competition, so it was assumed she wanted them with her. An email had been sent asking for more communication and clarity. Also, if weekends could be a more scheduled visitation that was maintained rather than changed every weekend. Her response was to say it was hurtful and demeaning and would be keeping the children. Her family had houseboats and ski cabins, BMWs and political offices. When their lawyers refused to follow the law, Erasmus had been left with nothing in their separation, not even a written agreement protecting his visitation rights. Do you see how this is the type of petty dispute that keeps individuals from rising to the challenge of helping the whole world? How is one supposed to help others when they can't even see their own children for weeks at a time? Does one merely admit defeat and skip on with their day? Or does one resist and cause battles? They say, pick your battles. Funny enough, for a woman who had received so many death threats over the years, Crystal Dawn had no enemies. How was this possible? It is best explained as an insult. You see, an insult is not an insult unless the person being insulted feels insulted. If the person does not feel insulted by the words, then no insult has been made. Words have merely been spoken to which the listener awards no meaning. If an ant one day told a human that the human was despicable, would the human feel offended at the words of such a tiny ant? It's hard to imagine beyond the shock of a speaking ant, but you get the idea. Many people thought they didn't like Crystal. Her old boss, someone who had helped her over the years and been a mentor and friend, would also remind her that 3 people could keep a secret if 2 of them were dead. He used to be like a grandfather to her, and she would gather the stories of his life as they spent days driving in the sun checking traps. They spent a lot of time in the graveyard. He wanted a memorial with a screen in it that people could press play and it would show a video of his life. He had an amazing life, and Crystal Dawn wanted to be just like him. Not exactly, of course. He had been a golf pro at the time. He said she would need full-time employment to pay the bills if she wanted to eventually be a full-time trapper with a trap line. That was why Crystal signed up to be a plumber. It had the lowest math prerequisite, and she'd welded as a child, so brazing and soldering sounded enjoyable. It also offered an opportunity to bring clean water and wastewater treatment facilities to communities in need globally. Even though she had heard directly from new clients that her old boss had warned them to not give her business, she still considered him an old friend and mentor. She was the first to visit him and his wife with flowers after COVID restrictions ended. He had been kind and warm and told her stories of his recent brain surgery. And she was the first person he had seen aside from his immediate family in a long time. Despite their history, Crystal had no enemies, just an understanding of why. That's all you need sometimes, is to know why. Erasmus left to play a game of golf on the pool table. They had forgotten about the meeting with the president of the Army Navy and were going to need to do something because the men would ask what news Erasmus had. Crystal would need to write a proper email. Sometimes you need to gather all the information before beginning something, though. Crystal wanted to create something amazing for her partner and all these friends that just wanted other friends to talk to and play with. Gerasimos had a passion for pool, but had made to feel guilty for it in the past. Crystal recognized it to be a natural source of dopamine for him and encouraged him to get out and spend time on himself. She even developed a lucky charm for his success of the day. Crystal Dawn could get lost in thought for hours thinking about Gerasimos, but now was time for writing her book. He would be gone for a few hours. One child was on a sleepover, one had not woken up, and the other was doing homework. It was a great time to get some uninterrupted writing done. Today was a momentous day in history. Remember, Crystal Dawn viewed her own personal life as having all the same experiences and problems of the world? Today, a great thing had occurred. Two great superpowers came together. One had initiated it and suggested peace. This superpower had been like Russia or China, completely sealed off from the rest of the family. Crystal had approached him once at Christmas time. She planted a seed. That seed was love, family, understanding, and respect. She had some negative reactions to it, of course, as many didn't want people to connect. They want people to feel as alone as they feel. So they dragged them away from family and locked them away in their own hateful reality of the world. It was hard for people to break away from. This mention of a peace talk stirred a lot of feelings. The most peaceful of all the superpowers was the one that surprisingly came out with guns blazing. Crystal Dawn told her so. She tried to calm the superpower and helped her see why the other superpower had not the nerve to contact her directly. She had her dukes up. No different than when an individual explains an injustice with an uproar of negative energy, she too was holding this pent-up energy from the past. Of course, she had every right to. Wrongs had been committed. Were they to simply be forgotten and not addressed? The pain and suffering that superpower had brought to their mother was so great, how could it ever be forgiven? It would never be forgotten in her mind. The third superpower, and perhaps the most typically explosive of all, was surprisingly hesitant, unknowing what to do. Granted, this was third-hand information at this point. It would only be known when the big meeting occurred. Crystal Dawn begged to be present. She was told twice that this did not include her. All three superpowers were definitely needing to meet together, and unless Crystal could be there as a helpful, healing crystal, absorbing the negative energy and radiating it out as positive rainbow of peace, she feared the meeting may not go as splendidly as it could have. Gerasimos and Crystal Dawn had their own dreams for the land. Gerasimos wanted to build self-sustainable farms and repurpose storage containers that could be shipped to communities globally. Crystal Dawn wanted to renovate his grandmother's home, restoring it to the beautiful yet simple homestead it had once been, and when they were the first pioneers of Lumby Valley. There we go. His grandmother and grandfather had run a farm and developed a trailer park for thousands of individuals who called it home for decades. He had a logging company too. His grandmother once wrote a poem. My lover was a logger, stirred his coffee with his thumb. Saturday night 'twas the Legion, with his nose in a bottle of rum. Come Sunday morn you'd find him, with his head between his knees, askin' Lord, will ya take this headache, please? There was more, but the handwriting was not the easiest to translate. Regardless, they were amazing people that worked hard and contributed by creating the community. Crystal Dawn dreamed that the city of Lumby would be interested in purchasing the farm one day and would run it as a historic site with park and river access for the local trailer park residents, and also offer over 60 acres of farmable land for any purposes that could create revenue to pay off the purchase of the land. It seemed like a beautiful plan that would benefit all superpowers simultaneously. Crystal could create gardens in the memory of the grandfather and the grandmother, though she was still alive and in a home. So wouldn't it be amazing if the superpowers could find peace while she was still alive? So she could see the beautiful things that had been done with her land and look back on her memories with pride as time well spent and not lost on financial greed, swallowed up by yet another multi-millionaire investor from the coast. All the land was getting swallowed up, and those investors did not care to preserve the memories of those who cleared the land before them, or the lessons they learned from the land while clearing it. There was hope. Hope lies with the Pearls. Crystal Dawn resumed writing Animal Farm Part 2 feverishly now. It had to be written. These words needed to be heard.